making you feel uncomfortable for needing time. And this one is crazy because the reason why they're doing that is because they don't want to give you time to think. Right? So now they're just pushing you to make decisions. And this one is crazy because some of the most wise decisions that you make, you need time to pray. You need time to gain that clarity. So what do? They're like, oh, why do you need time? If you really loved me, you would do it right now. It's the obvious decision. And so that's how people start to make the most unwise decisions. That's why you end up marrying the narcissist. That's why you end up making let's just move in together now.
There's a tension to like fix it or make a decision right away.
We love each other. Let's just move in right now. Why do you need to think about it? Why do you think? And so that's how you end up making these crazy decisions because they don't give you room to breathe. But you need those time. You need those boundaries. You need that time to pray about it to get that clarity. Emotional pressure is crazy. Hey girlies, welcome back to our channel. I'm Zelina.
I'm Tamika.
And you are now tuned in to Seasoned Sisters podcast, where sisterhood, real talk, and biblical truth collide.
Don't forget to like this video, comment down below what you enjoyed about today's episode, share, and most importantly, subscribe.
That's right. And if you prefer to listen to us on the go, we're also available on all podcast platforms.
If you want to see even more of us, check us out on all social media platforms at Seasoned Sisters _.
And if our ministry has blessed you in any way and you feel led to give, you can always do so on our website. Also on our website are all the ways you can keep up with us. We have our newsletter. We have our prayer request tab. We have all of our merch drops.
Don't forget the events.
And also all of our partnerships.
All right, sis. Let's jump into today's topic.
Make sure you get your Bibles and however you take notes and meet us right back here. This week's episode is going to be too good.
Too good.
All right, y'all. Welcome back.
Hey,
you so corny for that wave.
Listen, I'm trying not to overlap, so I'm saying hi to
overlap with me. I be trying not to overlap with like the intro because you already done said all of our
all the pieces.
But it's like I haven't seen you yet, so I still gotta say. Anyway, we're gonna stay focused today. Today, I'm really excited for this video because I'm gonna explain everything. I'm gonna explain the situation. We've already done this topic a few months ago when we were doing our demonology series. We did an episode on the spirit of Jezebel. So when we posted the video, we got a lot of response. We got a lot of good responses from the series as a whole in general, right? But specifically the Jezebel episode, I feel like a lot of our girlies were really liking that episode. Specifically, there was one young lady, her name is Tori. Shout out to you, girlie.
Okay, Tori.
Right? She wrote a comment and she was like, I had to pause this video because as she was watching it, she was saying that her ex-husband was diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. And she said as she was watching the episode, she was linking a lot of stuff that we were saying. She was like, this sounds like exactly what I was going through with my husband. And so she said she had to pause this video and she commented exactly, what I'm saying. And so as I'm reading the comment, I'm like, what?
Interesting.
I'm like, this is so crazy. And actually, I kind of want to break this down. And so I replied to her right away and I was like, girl, like we need to unpack this. And she was like, oh my gosh, that would be so great. Thank you guys for doing this, blah, blah, blah. And so this just shows you that this was 2 months ago, right? This was 2 months ago. By the time we post this, it'll probably be 3 months. And so that just shows you that when, we say that we're going to do something, it may be a couple of weeks, it may be a couple months, just, it takes prayer, it takes research. And so here we are 2 months later. Tori, we did forget about you, girl. I said that we were going to do it. It just took a little bit of time for us to flesh it out, for us to research it, for us to pray about it. And so I'm really excited about this episode. I wanted to say all that in the beginning because this is not going to be a repeat of what we've already done in the previous episode. So if you have not already seen the first episode, go back to episode 58.
Okay.
Watch that episode first, because that's going to give you a deep dive on what the Jezebel spirit is, right? We are not going to go back and talk about what we've already discussed. So pause this episode, go back to 58, get the deep dive, get the, we give a lot of practical information. We give a lot of biblical information on the Jezebel spirit, and then come back to this episode, because this episode is going to be a lot of us linking the Jezebel spirit with narcissistic personality disorder.
Good.
And so the only question where we're going to kind of overlap is this first question.
Right.
We're going to kind of give you a baseline so that we can move forward in linking the two together. And so sis, just give us very briefly, because again, the girlies are going to pause, the ones that haven't already seen the episode, they're going to pause and go back, but just give us briefly what the Jezebel spirit is biblically.
Okay, so you might have to reel me in a little bit, because I really tried to give a good synopsis without leaving out too much, because we want to be able to connect later on.
And you know what's funny? When I post the outlines for us to study, I be giving sis the little I be highlighting sis, just summarize, give a brief summary.
Listen. But you know, that is what they call it, objective. Your brief is probably my
so
lengthy.
I'm definitely gonna reel you in, because they gonna go. So
we'll be right back.
Okay, we back.
All right. So the question is, what is the Jezebel pattern biblically? Mm-hmm. And so we first see Jezebel's spirit originating in 1 Kings 16 through 21. And as you know, Jezebel is a Phoenician princess. Mm-hmm. Her dad was a priest in Sidon, and in that culture they practiced a lot of Baal worship, and so she was trained and formed inside of Baal worship. And so why this matters is because at the time that Jezebel enters the scene, Israel is actually culturally and spiritually unstable. Mm-hmm. And so she's able to bring influence to the people through her linkage to her husband, King Ahab, at the time. So some of the core characteristics of Jezebel's pattern is she likes to control through influence. So like I said, she was married to King Ahab, and what she would do is use that position as a way to influence rules or decrees that were over the people of Israel. And that was kind of unfortunate for the people of Israel, because they were already weak spiritually, and now here she is institutionalizing Baal worship amongst the people. Jezebel had a history of trying to silence prophetic voices. Anything that opposed God, she would oftentimes, and there's many scenarios, I won't go through any of them, there are many scenarios of Jezebel using her power or her justification to power as a way to silence people and show up the power of Baal over God. But obviously in every situation, God always overtook and always won.
That's good, sis. You did good.
Good. Because there's a lot here, y'all.
That's good. And so if we don't take anything else from the summary that sis has given, we want you guys to take that it's not really about who she was, but it's about how she operated. And the clearest example, and we go through this in the episode 58, was Naboth's death, right? And so in this example, we see that Jezebel wasn't just a person, but Jezebel is a pattern of behavior that's centered around control and influence. Mm-hmm. And so she influenced Ahab, as this is saying. Yeah. She influenced leadership. She influenced culture. Mm-hmm. And so this tells us that the pattern is less about titles and more about how she affects environments and people. And I also want to put this disclaimer out before we move forward that we are not licensed professionals. Right. We are here to bring awareness, and we are here to advocate. Going back to our girl Tori, that posted the comment, right? She was explaining that she was with her ex-husband for, we don't know how long. She didn't post that in the comment, but she was with her ex-husband, and they were going to counseling, and through counseling they were able to diagnose the narcissistic personality disorder, right? But it wasn't until she watched our video that she was able to gain the spiritual knowledge, right? And so we don't know how long that they had been together. It wasn't until she watched our episode. And so that's what we're here for.
That's good.
Right? And so we just want to bring the tools so that you not only have the natural tools and the practical tools, right, in the natural, but you also have those spiritual tools. This brings me back to Ephesians 6. We don't fight and wrestle against flesh and blood, right? It's all about the spiritual principalities, the rulers, the dark authorities. And so we want to make sure that we are giving you the tools so that you're able to fight in the spirit, and you're able to dismantle on a spiritual spiritual level. And so again, we are not licensed professionals, but we are here to give you the tools. So by the end of this episode, you feel like you're equipped, like, you know what? Okay, I know that I'm dealing with this. Now I can do this. Now I can go and get these resources. Now I know how to pray. Now I know what I need to do, if that makes sense.
That's good, sis.
And so now that we kind of have an understanding, now that you've gone back to episode 58, now that we have sort of a baseline, now we'll start to go and link the two together for the rest of this episode. I'm talking fast. Yeah. For the rest of this episode.
That's good, sis. No, I'm happy you said that, though. Because it's all about bringing awareness and bringing perspective, and then you have to do the rest of the work with God, with the Holy Spirit.
That's right.
Right. Yeah. So I love that you said that.
Thank you.
Good. You ready?
Let's go.
Okay. What is narcissistic personality disorder from a psychological perspective, sis?
Okay, so at its core, it's a pattern centered around self-focus and control. So it's a persistent pattern of exaggerated sense of importance, deep need for admiration, lack of empathy for others, and difficulty handling criticism. But if we want to say it in a practical sense, it's a lot different from somebody who just is confident, right? It's not the same as just, I love myself, but it's someone that everything has to revolve around me. There's also a difference, and I want to make sure I say there's also a difference between having the trait and having the disorder. Right? Not everyone that has these behaviors is going to have narcissistic personality disorder. There's a spectrum, just like there's a spectrum with everything else, right? Somebody that has the trait might have occasional selfishness or occasional defensiveness, right? There's a difference from that than having the pattern and the disorder. Someone that has a disorder is going to be very consistent, very pervasive, clinically diagnosable patterns where you're having the repeated unhealthy relational behaviors.
That's good. I have the same thing you have, sis, but I just kind of broke down a little bit each trait that you spoke about of NPD or narcissistic personality disorder. So the exaggerated sense of importance, they believe they are unique, special, or superior. And so this can show up as loud confidence or even internal superiority. And so that was very interesting for me to find, because some people may not be able to identify, because when they think of narcissism, they think of only people who are loud and boastful and taking up the space in the room, right? But sometimes you can have people who are internally believing that they are these things, that I am superior, that I am better than. And so they may not be loud about it, but they're able to manipulate and kind of work their way into certain circles because of their pattern in their mind. If that makes sense.
That's interesting.
Okay, that is interesting, right? Also, need for admiration, like you said, sis. They seek validation, praise, or recognition, and their identity is often reinforced through external approval. So these are the people who constantly need to feel like you're on their side. They need reassurance constantly. And this is very interesting, because these people, if you're not on their side, it's almost like you're the ops. You're almost opposition of what they're trying to do. And so they really need you to always be assuring them and proving that you're linked with them. And then lastly, the lack of empathy, difficulty recognizing or valuing others' emotions, and may dismiss, minimize, or ignore how others feel. And I love that you said that there's a difference between the traits and the disorder, because I know that some people may deal with lack of empathy, but it may not mean that they have narcissistic personality disorder. That's something that they should really work on, right? Learning how to connect with people and how to actually feel the emotion and bring them up with you. But this person has no desire to feel what you're feeling. It's all about how I feel, how I see things. And so they kind of push that kind of that behavior on other people, and it takes away from everybody else that they're connected to.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about how the two overlap. What are some key similarities between Jezebel-like behavior and narcissistic tendencies?
Okay, so we can go back and forth with this, because I know we probably have a few examples, but the first one that I want to mention is control as the core driver. So with Jezebel, we're seeking control outcomes, people, and environments. And like sis said, go back to episode 58, you'll see different scenarios where Jezebel is constantly trying to influence different structures in a system, but not directly, always through influence or always through another partner. And often they through manipulation, pressure, or intimidation. And that's a big one too. And so that's the Jezebel pattern. But then when you're talking about narcissistic tendencies, they seek to control to protect their self-image and maintain stability. So the difference there would be one is trying to like dismantle, interrupt environments, interrupt systems. That's the Jezebel pattern. But then when we're talking about narcissism, I am just trying to protect myself. I can do whatever it takes to make sure that my image is protected. And so this is a little bit different between the two. Where they overlap, though, is that both of them use fear. Both of them use control to feel secure, and they both struggle to release control when they're challenged. So that was the first one.
Yeah, and I just want to give an example for the control being the central goal for the Jezebel-like behavior. Good. So if we go back to Naboth's vineyard, right? So let's just say you make a decision, sis, and instead of me respecting the decision, I pressure you and I manipulate you into changing it. If we remember back with Naboth's vineyard, Ahab wanted Naboth's vineyard, right? And Naboth was like, no, thank you, right? So instead of them respecting the decision, right, Jezebel was like, oh, don't worry about it. I'll go and I'll get it for you. That's classic control through manipulation. Another one of the similarities between the two is image management and need for validation. So both of these patterns are highly concerned with how they are perceived, maintaining control of their image and being seen a certain way. How does this show up? Acting one way in public and then acting a different way in private. So an example of this, going back to Naboth's vineyard, Jezebel wanted Naboth's vineyard, right? Well, Jezebel and Ahab didn't go down there and just take it by force and just shoot up the place. Shoot up the place and give it to me right now. No, they wrote letters. Well, Jezebel wrote letters in the king's name. She set a public fast, making it look very spiritual. She staged everything to look very legit and very righteous. So the key here is that she wanted control, or she wasn't just after control, but she was after control without being exposed. So she made everything look so buttoned up because she did not want to be exposed. She wanted to maintain her image.
That's right.
She made everything look like it was like, oh yeah, I'm doing this in a legitimate way. She didn't go down there guns blazing. So that's the Jezebel side, right?
Good.
If we want to talk about the narcissistic side when we're talking about image management, this happens all the time too, where someone that has narcissistic personality disorder is acting one way in public and a different way in private. And I think that's why a lot of times when someone is dealing with a person that has narcissistic personality disorder, when they finally do break apart, the family is the one that takes it the hardest, because a lot of times they're not even aware. And so they're like, oh, Johnny, why? He's such a good person. He's so good to you. He's so nice. He does so much for the family, because at home, you're the one catching all of the strays, right? And then when you go out to the family reunions and the family functions, and you're going to the work meetings, and even down to when you go to church, y'all are in leadership, right? And so they're doing all of these great things and everybody loves them at church. And then you go home and it's a completely different way. And so when all of these things come out, everybody all around you is like, oh my gosh, Johnny? Because they do their best to keep up their image in person, because image management is very important. They have to maintain because they do not want to be exposed.
That is good. And look how close look at the relationship between the two, but it's just done, maneuvered a little bit differently. That's good. Another key similarity between the Jezebel pattern and the narcissistic tendencies would be a resistance to accountability. So in the Jezebel pattern, she resists correction because truth threatens her control. And we can even go back to the example you were giving about Naboth's vineyard, but there's another example about Elijah when they were both challenging, or there was a challenge between the two, between the god of Baal, or Baal's god, and the true God of Israel. And so there was a showdown between the two, and obviously God answered, and he answered by fire. But the thing is that truth should have, or does expose that there is only one true God. And so they always are trying to resist that kind of opposition where they're going to be showed up. And so they often silence or discredit those who may try to confront them. And so that was her mission. She was trying to silence the prophet's voice, but she ended up being showed up anyways. And then so narcissistic tendencies, they resist correction because it threatens their identity. And so it threatens the way that they appear to people. And so because their image is so important, there is a big push against uncovering the truth. And they also may deflect, blame shift, or become defensive. And we see that a lot in narcissistic behaviors. It's never their fault. It's never the way that you perceived it. It's always the other person's perception of what they're doing. Yeah. And so the overlap, though, would be that both have difficulty receiving the truth, right? And that both of them may redirect blame rather than self-reflect. There is no real accountability between the two patterns.
That's good.
Yeah. Why is control at the center of both, and what is it usually rooted in?
Okay, so control is a response to internal insecurity. So at the root of both is not strength. They're actually very fragile people, right? So control is a way to avoid being exposed and to avoid being rejected. Also, control creates a false sense of safety. And I love this one because it's like when I can't regulate what I'm feeling internally, I regulate everything externally, right? So I start to control conversations. I start to control people's responses or environments. And it's like, because if everything around me is controlled, I don't have to deal with what's happening inside. So if I can control a relationship, I don't have to worry about feeling abandoned. If I can control a narrative, I don't have to worry about being exposed.
That's right.
So control starts to become a coping mechanism, and I don't have to actually deal with what's really going on.
Oh, that's good, sis. So control is not just like a random behavior. It's actually the way of protecting
what's really happening. Because like I said in the beginning, these are very fragile people. And often it's because of something that may have happened to them, right? And they're protecting what's really happening on the inside. These are very broken people when it comes down to it.
Wow. That's really good, sis. So I did have that the root may be insecurity or a fragile identity. Another thing I think, though, would be fear. Fear shows up differently in each. So in the Jezebel pattern, we see fear of losing power or influence. And you gave a really good example when you were talking about the leaders in church who are one way in front of their people and then a different way at home. They don't want to lose their influence. So we have to maintain this good character in front of the people, but we can be whatever we want when we're not in front of them. They also have fear of disrupting their control or fear of being confronted or exposed. And I know you've already said that, but I wanted to reiterate how important they place their influence on people, that they would rather instill lies and distrust and disrupt what kind of peace or unity there is amongst the people to protect themselves. And so this really is similar to the narcissistic personality disorder. This is really similar to protecting their self-image, to maintaining a way to look in front of people. And then you have the narcissistic tendencies, which are fear of rejection, fear of losing validation. And so the control becomes a way to avoid feeling powerless. The last root that I have, sis, is distrust. So at a deeper level, control reflects a lack of trust in God. It also reflects a lot of a lack of trust in people or your relationships, right? You think because if I had to go back to who I am at my true core, at my true identity, maybe people wouldn't like me. So it's a distrust of relationships. And also emotionally, you probably don't trust that you can handle being alone and having to do the work for yourself and healing from all the trauma or things that you're trying to hide. So instead of doing that, I rather just live in this other alternate personality, alternate universe where I am a different person than who I really am on the inside of me. And so scripture consistently calls believers to trust God more than outcomes. And so, like we've been saying the whole time, both patterns really want to control what's happening in people's lives, right? But also in environments and in structures. And so there's a lack of distrust when people are exhibiting a lot of these traits.
I like that you said that, sis, because that wasn't even on my radar to put on this question, because in my mind it's like if someone is going through either one of these, right, I already have in my mind that there's no relationship with God. You know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't have even thought of that. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because to me it's kind of obvious.
That's interesting that you said that.
There is no trust in God because there's no relationship with God. And so,
that is very interesting that you said that, because I think that that's going to shine a light on people who who are associated, who are familiar with God, who have heard about God, and who has even read the text for themselves, and who may think that they are in relationship with God. But what you just said, I think, shines a light on the fact that relationship with God manifests itself through trust. And so the two to the naked eye, or to a regular person, or to someone like you, they could see that is a natural linkage. But what about the person who thinks or who is blinded by, and we always talk about this, they really know, but they be trying to act like they don't know. But to the person who really is blinded by their second life.
And I want people to understand that, like, being a Christian and being a Christian and saying that you read the Bible, and we've had these conversations before, is very different than having relationship with God. And I want to make that clear.
Of course.
So saying that you are a Christian, and even saying that you go to church, right? Saying that you read the Bible is very different from having a relationship with God. So I want to make that clear in what I'm saying, right? So what I'm saying is having a relationship with God would be very hard,
right?
If you're dealing with these things.
That's right.
So that's what I'm saying.
And it would also be difficult for you to have a root of distrust,
right,
if you have a relationship with God, because that's one of the core foundations of faith.
What I'm saying is, if you have a relationship with God, then there's going to be certain convictions, there's going to be certain things that God is going to bring forth, right? I'm not saying that you're not going to struggle with things, but I'm saying that if you have a relationship with God, then God is going to bring things to you, and God is going to work things out, through you.
That's true.
Right. But I think that people believe that because, I'm Christian, and because I, say that I am a Christian and I say that I love God, then they get offended when people like me say the things that I say. Well, just because you say that you're a Christian and you say that you love God, but you might deal with narcissistic personality disorder, or you may deal with, the Jezebel spirit, or you may deal with, the Python spirit, or you may deal with, some of these other things. Don't get offended now. Deepen your relationship with God.
Don't
get offended now. Just because if you go back to some of the episodes from the demonology series, don't get offended, because if you go back to those episodes, what are the practical steps that we've given you? Go back to scripture.
Right.
What are some of the practical steps that we've given you? Repent.
Right.
What are some of those practical steps that we've given you?
Right.
You have to deepen your relationship with God.
So it's not an end all be all where we're shining the light, and so you have ways to make sure that you get to that position where you're deepening your relationship.
Right.
I love that.
That's all I'm saying.
That's good.
That's all I'm saying.
Excellent.
Okay. I've gone on my rant.
Hey.
Okay. How does manipulation show up subtly in these dynamics?
Okay, so manipulation in both dynamics are rarely obvious. And like you've been saying the entire episode, we go deep in when we're talking about Jezebel in our demonology series, episode 58. But it doesn't usually start off aggressive. It usually starts off kind of subtle, relational, even believable. But what makes it dangerous is it does feel like if you're not high on your discernment, if you're not paying attention, it can feel like normal interaction. Just like someone who cares about you maybe, and it builds gradually. It also targets your perception, your emotions, and your responses. So one good example is with gaslighting, and gaslighting we know is like distorting reality. It's making someone question their memory, perception, or understanding. And so this is how it shows up subtly. They say things like, "That's not what I said," or "You're overreacting." Ooh, that almost triggered me. You're overreacting, or you always take things the wrong way. Anything like that, any kind of comments that are trying to make you second guess the way you are truly feeling or the way you really recall a situation. Those things are trying to distort your reality, and it can also be one way that this dynamic is showing up inside of your relationship, or manipulation is showing up inside of your dynamic. I'm sorry.
It almost triggered you, sis.
Girl, because I know I can't be the only one, but I know that people who, especially in relationship, I like using relationship as one way, but this can happen in any scenario. But you remember a situation distinctly, and when you bring it up to have a conversation about it, all of a sudden you're the person who is overreacting.
Yeah.
And it's like, it can make you feel like maybe I am. Maybe I'm too sensitive. I used to say that to myself all the time. Maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe I did overthink. I am an overthinker. Maybe I did overthink that. And so that's the way it kind of works, though. It kind of just like try to break you down slowly, like, it's subtle, but it's your fault. It has nothing to really do with me. And so
that's the whole point. Yeah. That's the whole point of gaslighting, to make you change your perception. Sheesh. That's the whole point. Sheesh. To make you change your perception. Sheesh. And I was going to go into an example, but you just really went into my example about relationships. That's the whole point, to change your perception. Maybe I was a little too insensitive. Maybe I am the problem. And so I won't even go into my example because you just said it beautifully. But the key is gaslighting doesn't change the story. It just makes your ability, it just changes your ability to read the story.
Right.
And so that's crazy.
Dangerous.
I don't be knowing these like new terms, so gaslighting was new for me. I'm like, what the heck is gaslighting? Yeah. So I had to go and research what gaslighting is, and now they have this new things. You're the birthday. I'm like, what, girl?
They're running up. They're running with it too. They're turning it to. I heard. Okay, I ain't gonna get into it.
Don't get into it. That's off topic. It's off topic, but I'm here to tell you, I try to stay hip. I'm not hip on this one. I'm not hip on this one. I'm out. I'm out of this one.
I know my place. I'm auntie. I'm auntie category. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm out of this one. Yeah. Shout out to all of the people that were in the comments saying that they were the aunties. Nobody said they were the niece. So.
The aunties.
So everybody's an auntie on here. We love y'all. Yeah. Nobody represented for the nieces. So everybody's an auntie. We the auntie club.
Nieces, go ahead and comment, man. Okay.
Nobody. I'm telling you, nobody.
The nieces in the back just watching,
Nobody. We don't have any nieces. We have no nieces.
All aunties.
Yeah, all aunties. Stay focused.
Okay.
Because, next one. Guilt tripping.
Yes.
Guilt tripping is controlling through empathy. And this one is huge, especially for women, because women are naturally empathetic. They're naturally nurturing. They're naturally compassionate, right? This is manipulation at its finest, because how does this one show up? After everything I've done for you, and you can't even do this for me, right? If you really cared, you would do X, Y, and Z. And so now this is how things shift from what's healthy to now this is how you made me feel. And I really hate this one, because now I'm suppressing my emotions, trying to worry about yours, and in fact you're the one that's manipulating me. So just like we said in the last example, now I'm really like, okay, well, maybe I was a little insensitive, right? Or maybe I was a little mean. Whole time you're manipulating me, and so now I'm prioritizing your emotions over my well-being, and the whole thing is toxic.
Yep. I end up over apologizing, and now I don't want to set boundaries. And you know what, the first one that you said, the first example you said, sis, you were like, after everything I've done for you. And you know what that reminded me of? I know we've all seen movies or actually witnessed this firsthand, parent to child relationship. I have seen it where the parent throws the fact that after I've raised you, after I've bought you this, after I've done this, after I've taken you through school, after I've done, and it's not, listen, I don't always think that the parent is trying to manipulate, but listen to this though. The only reason why you're bringing this back is because you're trying to give yourself a pedestal to stand on, to say, this is why you should not treat me this way. This is why you shouldn't have an opinion. This is why you shouldn't set any boundaries. And that is so unfair. It makes the other person be like, dang, she was a single mom. She did have to do all this for me and my brothers. Let me go ahead and just take this one on the chin.
And sis, that's why toxicity goes over generations.
Jeez, peace, man.
Because it starts off like that.
So crazy. And it's so, I know people can relate. I know people have seen it. It's even in the media that we watch. Like, that is a way for, I don't want to say only mothers, right? But we usually see the mother playing that role with a son, but I won't go there. But yeah, we usually see that kind of tactic being used to kind of pull them out of their right. Into my side, into feeling empathetic for me. Jeez Louise. Okay. And so like you said, it ends up they stop setting boundaries, and now we're back to square one. Now you have me under your control through guilt. And so the last one, emotional pressure.
Emotional pressure. That one's creating urgency, and discomfort. How does that one show up? Pressuring you to decide quickly, not giving you space to think, making you feel uncomfortable for needing time. And this one is crazy, because the reason why they're doing that is because they don't want to give you time to think. right? So now they're just pushing you to make decisions. And this one is crazy because some of the most wise decisions that you make, you need time to pray.
Time. Yeah.
You need time to gain that clarity.
Yeah.
So what do? They're like, oh, why do you need time?
Right.
If you really loved me, you would do it right now.
Right.
It's the obvious decision.
Right.
And so that's how people start to make the most unwise decisions. That's why you end up marrying the narcissist. That's why you end up making let's just move in together right now.
Right. There's a tension to like fix it or make a decision right away.
We love each other. Let's just move in right now. Why do you need to think about it? Why do you think? And so that's how you end up making these crazy decisions, because they don't give you room to breathe.
Right.
But you need those time. You need those boundaries. You need that time to pray about it, to get that clarity. Emotional pressure is crazy.
Amen. It also creates like hyper awareness of their mood. So you're always trying to make sure that they're satisfied with you. Is everything okay? Like, you know, that kind of pressure. And then obviously self-silencing to avoid conflict. I don't want to even try to push back or even give an opinion or even... In the moment, I may have considered 5 different things, but I'm not going to say anything because I don't want that kind of conflict. And so I'm just going to silence myself to make peace, to keep everything going. Very sad.
Very sad.
Very sad. Very sad. Right. So sis, this connects to the Jezebel-like pattern in the example you gave about Naboth's vineyard. She uses manipulation to control or silence opposition, right? Like you said, she went through all the proper channels to make it seem like spiritual and to make it seem like this is just an opposition against the people, to basically silence the person who is being wronged. They also feel like they also apply pressure to get you to agree, submit, or not challenge. And that example of Naboth's vineyard, that's going to be the number one example. That one shows it clearly how the Jezebel spirit might move in a situation or in a dynamic like that. For narcissistic tendencies, though, manipulation used to protect self-image and maintain self-control, and they may feel like constant emotional adjustment to keep them stable. And so what I mean by that is that 1 minute I am super kind to you, and I don't want to get too ahead of myself because I think we speak about this a little bit later when we start talking about in real life. But 1 minute I'm treating you one way, and the next minute I'm treating you another way. But that kind of emotional adjustment, constant emotional adjustment, is to keep you where I need to keep you, keep you unstable, so that I can continue to do whatever I need to do to you. Right, and I won't go any further than that.
That's right.
Let's talk about how it manifests in real life, sis. How do these patterns show up in relationships, like dating, friendships, or even church?
So let's talk about in dating first. At first, I think that a lot of people that deal with these patterns are, they show strong interest, they show attentiveness, and they also show protection. But over time, it shifts into control. And I think that's why a lot of people end up marrying those that have these different types of disorders or patterns, right? Because at first it's like love bombing. At first it's just all daisies and roses. And then after a while it kind of shifts into the real thing. It shifts into, okay, this is real. And they use that emotional pressure to push things along. And so before you know it, because you're not being wise, you're pushed into this situation. Before you know it, because you're not setting those boundaries and things like that, now you're either living with them, you're married, because you haven't given it the time. And so I think that's how it shows up. First, they're just, everything is cool.
Everything you want them to be.
And then it switches. Also, they want constant access to your time, and then they get upset when you need space. And this is after everything starts to die down and you start to really see their true colors. They just always want to be with you. We spoke about this. I forget which episode we spoke about this on, but they just constantly want to be in your skin. And they feel like they're entitled to your time. They're entitled to your space. They're entitled to, there's no type of boundaries. And there should be boundaries.
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
What else?
Of course. So yeah, I like what you said about having influence over your decisions and subtle discouragement of independence. All of a sudden you can't go hang out with your friends anymore. And I think that has a lot to do with you being exposed to the light, right? Like if I go link up with Z might tell me something that I have been avoiding or I haven't had time to think about. And so that becomes a threat to what they have going on. And so I think that's what that really is about.
So that's about isolation.
It's about isolation. And we speak about that a lot in the different episodes about how it's not good to be alone.
Right.
Wise counsel and good community, two are separate, are very important to have. The manipulation can look like, I just care about you, right? They can say things like, I just care about you. Or they give you, like you said, like they give you guilt when you're trying to set boundaries, or they're even shifting the blame during conflict in relationship. And so this creates emotional instability in the relationship. You have highs with affection and attention, but then they're followed by quick lows where there's distance and tension.
Yeah.
And this kind of goes back to the emotional pressure question, where we have to always keep, or these people have to always keep the emotional adjustment always moving to kind of keep you on your toes, so you don't ever get too comfortable in one way or another. And so what it creates a lot of confusion about what's healthy in a relationship. It also creates emotional dependency, and lastly, difficulty settling or maintaining boundaries, which you've already touched on.
That's good. And then the last thing I just want to say is, you feel like you're always explaining yourself. Like, why do I always have to explain myself? And you touched on this a little bit before, but you feel like you're always having to, like, you never know if you've said the wrong thing. You never know if you've done something right or something wrong. And so you feel like if you say something and they don't agree with you, then you always have to maneuver and, oh no, I meant this, or no, I meant this. That's definitely a red flag. We're not talking about red flags, but that's definitely how it shows up. That's definitely how the pattern shows up. You struggle to take accountability, or they struggle to take accountability and shift the blame onto you. You can never do anything right. And we're going to talk a little bit about like how that shows up in mental health in the next question, but that's wild.
That is, and that's also suffocating. If you always feel like you're in the wrong, or you're never able to please this person, that's really, and like you said, we're not talking about red flags, but that really is a sign that you are probably dealing with someone who has some of these character traits, especially if when you bring something, if you ever do get a chance to bring something to the forefront that may bother you about that person, and they can never see it your way. So you can never see what I'm talking about, but I always have to see what you're talking about.
That's good.
That is a problem.
That's good.
That's an issue.
That's good, because you want to be with someone where you can, that give and take, where there's open communication. Hello, somebody. But you feel like you can't communicate. Going back to the example that you were talking about before, where you try to have a conversation, but they gaslighting you. They're making it look like, I never said that. That's not good communication.
You're overreacting.
And then you start to think like, well, maybe I did say something wrong. Maybe that's not open communication. And we know that one of the best green flags is where you can have open communication with your partner.
And I think it's important to also mention that, like, you're probably not going to always, or in a relationship, you may not always like what the person has to say, because sometimes it can feel exposing. It can feel like, oh my God, am I really doing that? But it's about how you handle it. It's about how you move forward. If you start to automatically deflect, and even if you deflect and you never come back to kind of like try to fix the situation or rectify, or say, you know what, you were right. I do have a tendency, and I'm going to work on. If there's none of that inside of you, there's an issue going on there.
And I'm glad you said that, sis, because that goes back to what I said in the beginning when we were defining narcissistic personality disorder. Right? I said that there's a spectrum, because you're going to come across some people who are selfish, who have selfish tendencies. You're going to come across some people who are a little defensive. That doesn't mean that they are operating in the Jezebelic spirit. That doesn't mean that they have narcissistic personality disorder. That just means they're a little selfish.
And they might have a little growing up to do. They're a little immature. They got a little growing up to do.
I'm glad that you mentioned that. Good. Okay, now let's go into friendships.
All right. So in friendships, there's one of the things that you can see in the dynamic is a control in the dynamics. So one person dominates decisions, and there's a subtle expectation to agree or align. And this really speaks to the Jezebelic spirit, and also the narcissistic one. But what I mean by that is any opposition is not welcomed here. So I need you to, when I give you that look, I need you to say yes and just go along with it. There is no way, or there is no expectation for you to have an opinion, for you to rebuttal. And so that is very toxic in a relationship, because that's very toxic. Even in a friendship, I'm talking about, it's very toxic in a friendship, because it creates all kind of guilt and obligation.
That sounds like a relationship to me.
Yeah. Well, you know, relationships
like
are friendships with the romantic component, if you ask me. But yeah, like that's exactly what it is, sis. And so it creates guilt and obligation. I'm always there for you, keeping score of your effort and loyalty. And that is important to me, because if you have a friend who is always talking about how loyal they are to you, but your lack of loyalty to them, yet they are the one who is taking control of the relationship. This is a very dangerous combination.
Yeah.
How can you expect me to have an opinion or to even bring something to the forefront when you're constantly in control and you never make any room for me to oppose? It's almost like mind games. It's like you're trying to trick me into thinking that I have an option when I really don't.
That's good.
And so then you start to question my loyalty when I say that I don't want to follow through with something, but it has nothing to do with my loyalty.
Right.
I also have an opinion. And so it becomes very dangerous and toxic in a friendship. I keep on saying relationship, but I mean friendship.
Yeah.
And last example I'll give is emotional pressure. Withdrawing when things don't go their way. So if you have a friend who is always pulling away from you because you don't agree with them, or creating tension that you feel you're responsible to fix. And that's what we've been speaking about in the last example, that hyper awareness of their mood. Oh my gosh, they're mad at me. Let me jump in and try to fix it. And friendships are important, and you should do the work to maintain your friendships, but you should not always feel or carry the burden.
That's right.
To be the one to fix your relationship. This has to be dual-sided. This has to be both of us caring enough about the relationship to do the work, to pray, to come together, to have conversations, to fix whatever is wrong between the two of us.
That's right.
Yeah.
Another one, they get upset, and you mentioned this very briefly, but I want to hone in on this. They get upset when you spend time with other friends and make you feel guilty. It goes back to what we were talking about with the dating. That's isolation.
Yeah.
They want you to be their only friend. And so when you go out with other people and you come back and you're like, oh yeah, and I was spending time with so-and-so, and they're like, oh, so-and-so.
Right.
They want you to be their only friend.
Right.
That's toxic.
Of course it is.
That's very toxic, because they want it to be only the two. And if you have any other friends, that's a problem.
Right.
But it goes back to what we were talking about with the dating. They want their voice to be the only voice that you hear.
That's it, sis. If I let you go talk to somebody else, they might say something that challenges everything I've been talking about.
They might be like, oh yeah, that one, that Tamika, she a little, I don't know. I don't think she's that good of a friend.
Right. Planting a seed.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And let me tell you about my God. They let you out that house, you're bound to get a seed planted or two. Yeah, so it can't happen that way.
They subtly compete with you instead of supporting you. This is the one.
Yeah.
This is the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're best friends, but you can never be doing better than me.
Never.
I don't like that.
Never. Don't know how to celebrate you. Don't know how to be happy for you. Don't know how to pray for you. But those are the ones that's not going to pray for you.
Sis.
Why would I pray for you?
Why?
So you can pass me? Girl, you crazy.
You wicked.
Girl, you crazy.
Oh my gosh.
God, do what for her, please? Yeah, that's sick though, right?
I'm shook.
That's sick.
Oh my gosh.
Sick.
They play the victim when you try to address the issue. This is a good one. This is a good... Who, me? I've been praying for you the whole time.
I'm your only friend. What are you talking about? No, it's not funny. It's
really
girl,
not. I'm kind of in shambles from this.
Girl. It's real.
I'm kind of shook because
it's sick.
It's very sick.
Yeah,
it's very sick.
It's so sad.
I'm very sick. You feel pressure to respond quickly or be constantly available. This is the one too.
Yeah.
This is the one too.
Yeah.
They expect you not to have a life outside of them.
Yeah.
And as we get older, like, we very much have a life.
Right.
And
different things, yeah.
Nobody can expect you to be constantly available.
Right.
But you don't respond right away, and it's like, what were you doing?
Right. Who were you with? Who were you talking to? What's going on?
That's sick,
sis. Control, man.
This is the last one. They dismiss your feelings but expect you to validate theirs.
That's good.
And this is a good one because it's like, I understand. Like, we all go through things, but
There has to be a moment when you're able to come back, though. Like, your initial response may not be ideal, but there's no conviction. There's no call to fix it, to apologize, to repent, to come back and say, hey, you know what? That was a little selfish of me. I'm so sorry.
Right.
Because like you said, some people have struggles.
Right.
I'll be the first to tell you I'm still working on my selfishness.
Right.
And so, but there goes that relationship. There is nothing that tugs at you to say, go back and fix that. Apologize for that because you were wrong. That's where you need to do some self-evaluation, self-reflection. Because why don't I feel convicted after you probably don't even know. Look, you need to go back to intimacy. Try to create that relationship with God.
And then the last one, let's talk about in church spaces. You talked about in the beginning that, what did you say about what Jezebel did with the prophets?
Right. So Jezebel would often try to silence any prophet that tried to oppose her. And so there was this showdown between Elijah and Jezebel about whose God was bigger. And or greater or even true. That's the real version I'm trying to say. Whose God is true. And so there was this showdown, but then Elijah was able to have, God decided to show his power through answering by fire. And the people were in amazement, like, whoa, oh yes, there is only one true God. Baal could never, what happened to your God? Why couldn't he do this? And so it created kind of like a division, kind of like a split. People were now awakened and seeing that, oh yeah, Baal is not a true God. But in church spaces, I
asked because to say one lie. She done gave us a whole.
Sorry, guys. Sometimes
the point was just that Jezebel likes to come against the prophet.
She does like to come against the prophet.
That was it.
She likes to spaces. sow cords of discord, right?
Yes.
Sow seeds of discord.
Yes, that was the point.
That was what you were trying to say. I'm sorry, guys.
we love a good we love a good Bible study.
Reel it in, child. Okay. Anyways,
yes, that's good.
So how it can show up?
Okay, let's go.
Influence without accountability. And we're talking about in church spaces specifically.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I'm just going to touch briefly because I feel like you have something good to say.
No, not really.
Oh, okay. Because you were like, yes, girl. Yes. Okay. So it can show up with strong personality or voice. What I was saying before I even said that sentence, I was saying that discernment really matters here. And that's because church is usually presented as a place where you can feel safe. Put your guard down. Everyone here is on a journey and we're all fixing ourselves and we all have love in common, right? So that's how church often presents itself. But you have to be very sensitive to the spirit when you're dealing in spaces like this. Okay, so influence without accountability. So strong personality or voice, but resistant to correction or leadership. And so this really puts, this really puts our leaders at the forefront.
Yeah.
Right? They have that strong personality. They have that voice that they're able to speak to your life, right? But if your leader is not able to take correction, or if they're not even humbled by God himself, then that is a good sign that you're probably in a area where manipulation is running the dynamics in that church.
Yeah.
Right?
Sis, that's the key. That's all I have to say. Because I'm going to read down a few of this list and then I'm going to give you the key, which you just said, right? In church spaces, they use God told me to pressure your decisions. They're disagreeing with them is framed as rebellion or lack of submission.
Yes.
They expect loyalty but avoid accountability. They control access to opportunities, platforms, and relationships. Yeah. So what is the key to all of this? You have to have discernment, because if they're using God told me to pressure your decisions, but God did not tell them, right? How are you going to be able to know that God did not tell them?
Right. Only with
God got to tell you.
That's right.
So you have to have a relationship with God, which we've been saying the entire episode, and you have to use your discernment. If disagreeing with them is framed as rebellion or lack of submission, right? If they expect loyalty but avoid accountability, if they control access to opportunities, platforms, or relationships, if they correct publicly, but avoid private accountability, how are you going to be able to see through this lens of deception? It has to be discernment.
That's right.
And so when sis said discernment, I said that's it.
Yeah, that is the answer in those spaces.
So in church spaces, you have to be able to use your discernment, and that's with the Jezebel spirit, and that's also with narcissistic personality disorder.
Yes, ma'am.
Because when they come against you, you have to be able to say, oh no, my discernment is telling me, the Holy Spirit is telling me, that's false. No, you said God told you that? No, God ain't telling me that. No. God told you that? Oh, let me pray for confirmation. I'll be right back. No. Let me pray for clarity. No. No.
No is the answer.
I don't play that. No.
And so, sis, what do these...
I'm irritated. I'm sorry. I'm irritated.
Because it's so dangerous and it's so manipulative. You know, you have these sheep in your area, and this is how you decide to treat God's people. Oh goodness, there has to be an answer for that.
Yeah.
But in these three environments, so we're talking about relationships, friendships, and in church, what they have in common is that your voice begins to shrink in all three, right? In all three situations, you feel like you have less to say because you're trying to create peace or keep peace. And your clarity begins to blur. So that goes back to that gaslighting. You start to second guess everything you know about anything. Yeah. And then lastly, your decisions start being influenced by pressure and not peace. And that directly links to that emotional pressure question we were talking about earlier. But it's no longer about what God wants you to do. It's about external pressure telling you what to do.
Yeah. That's good. How do these patterns affect a person's identity, mental health, and spiritual discernment?
Okay, so these patterns don't just create difficult relationships. They slowly reshape how a person is able to see themselves, process reality, and hear and trust God. So it starts with emotional exhaustion. Right? Okay. You're carrying emotional weight that isn't yours. And this goes back to the example you gave about having that pressure to feel like I need to fix your mood. Forget about how I feel about anything. Let me make sure that you're okay. You're carrying all this extra emotional weight, and you're also over functioning in the relationship. Yeah. You are always the one showing up to fix, always the one to show up because you're super loyal and you just want to be a great friend, but you're doing too much. You're over functioning in the relationship. This also deals with, when we're talking about how do these patterns affect a person's identity, we're talking about low self-worth. You start to internalize blame, feeling like you're not enough or too much at the same time. You're too sensitive, or you're not understanding, or like I used to tell myself, you overthink everything, girl.
Yeah.
Over here beating on myself because I'm being played by somebody else. Crazy. I don't want to go. I have a lot to say, but I want you to be able to share because I don't want us to take too much time. Since the time is going.
Time is
and
going.
We're only at number 7.
You know the battery. That battery is a little sensitive.
Y'all been praying for the battery?
Listen, y'all pray for the battery.
Y'all gotta pray for real.
Listen, so okay, let's talk identity first. Yeah, identity is no longer stable, right? Because it's dependent on their behavior.
That's right.
And this is crazy because when your identity is no longer stable because it's dependent on their behavior, that means that you no longer have an original thought.
That's right. That's right.
And that's crazy to me.
They've taken away your power to think for yourself, yeah.
So you're always sticking and moving based off of what they're thinking. That's wild to me. So your identity is now in them.
Right. No longer in God.
No longer in God. Your identity is in them.
Yes.
So it's so far removed.
Yes.
Which brings me to mental health.
Good.
Your mental health begins to decline.
Ooh.
Right? These environments create constant internal tension. So how does this show up?
Right.
It shows up in anxiety, overthinking, mental exhaustion, confusion, again, because you're always sticking and moving. You're constantly analyzing and adjusting because you're not just thinking for yourself, but you're thinking for yourself and another person.
Yes.
So you're constantly trying to make sense of all of the inconsistency. It's like you're playing chess.
Right. Right. Constantly.
All of the time.
Right. You never get a break.
Well, did I say something wrong? Okay, let me do this. Let me stay 3 steps ahead. Let me stick and move. Let me stay out the way. Okay. Now today I got to move 2 steps. Now today I got to be 10 steps. And so you're constantly in a state of anxiety and exhaustion because you're over analyzing all of the time and your mind can never get any type of rest.
And what is that the perfect breeding ground for somebody to just come in and do whatever they want? I'm exhausted. I'm tired. You do the thinking for me because I don't even have the capacity to do it for myself.
That's right.
Lastly was the impact on spiritual discernment, right? So discernment, we know, requires clarity, truth, and internal stability, right? It also requires intimacy with God, closeness with God. And so these patterns disrupt All three. It creates confusion between truth and manipulation. Right. So you have a difficulty recognizing what is actually right, and you have an increased reliance on others' perspectives. So what do you think? See, what do you think I should do? How do you think I should handle this? Instead of even going to God. And nothing is wrong with talking to someone who you trust, but you also have to include your God. You have to include God. And just a little scripture, and I don't have it written out, but
it's okay.
Girl, you see I'm chopping over these words.
If the battery go dead, y'all, if the battery go dead, we'll just change it. Because I want you to be able to, because you know me, I'm going to get my thought out.
Girl.
So I want you to make sure you get your, slow down.
I can be a little long-winded though, so sometimes I try to.
Don't go too slow.
You know what I'm saying? Because I'm like,
but no, seriously.
I got to find a balance.
Get your thought out.
All right. So a good connection to this in the Bible is in Romans chapter 12, verses 2. And I'm just going to kind of briefly, but we're going to put up on the screen right here the entire scripture because I don't have it for you right now. But it's talking about transformation that comes through renewing of the mind, right? Mm-hmm. And stronghold and manipulation that distorts that process. And so it is important that if you find yourself in a situation where you are constantly relying on someone else's interpretation of God's voice over your life, then you need to go back to step one.
Yeah.
Let's get back to intimacy. Let's get back to God. How is it possible that you're only talking to her about me? Let me get back in alignment with you so I can also hear what's going on. And I just really pray that this can be kind of like a shake for someone who may see it, because my fear, sis, is that someone may not be fully aware that they're caught in this process. And I'm talking about as the person who's receiving the treatment, not as the person who's doing the treatment. Because we always talk about, they probably really do know. Yeah. But as the person who's receiving, if you really feel like you're always in this sense, and even when it comes down to spirituality, you can't even rely on God, you have to rely on somebody else, then you need to go back to renew your mind. You need to go back to the basics and get back close with God.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to say about spiritual discernment is sometimes you begin to spiritualize what should have been discerned. And this is huge, because instead of recognizing unhealthy patterns, people say, oh, maybe I just need to be more patient. Maybe this is an assignment. And because your spiritual judgment or your spiritual discernment is clouded, you stay longer than you should.
Yeah. Yes.
And so we have to make sure that our spiritual discernment is up. Because if our spiritual discernment is clouded, we're going to start spiritualizing things that get out of there. Right. But because our mental health is down, because our identity is also in shambles, obviously our spiritual discernment is also going to be in shambles.
This episode 58, guys, because this is all a structure move. I'm attacking one, then the other, then the other. Yeah.
All right, we're wrapping it up. Last two questions.
Here we go. Why do people stay in these dynamics longer than they should?
So let's talk trauma bonds first. Ooh. So this is one of the strongest reasons. Trauma bonds are when pain and connection get tied together. I have a friend. I'm just going to go through a very short example. Y'all know I love examples, but she was dealing with a narcissist. Boy, was he a narcissist. Wow. And at the beginning of their relationship, it was kind of like the example where I said that everything was kind of great at first. He's very attentive. He was... at the beginning of their relationship, her brother was murdered, and he was there. Boy, was he there. He was there for her. He was there to pick out the casket. He was, he was the one that was there. He was there with the family. He was there at the service. He was the one that made sure everything was okay. She said that he was there at the repast playing with the kids and stuff like that. And so there was a trauma bond that was formed during that time. And so when things started to get bad, she would always go back to that moment because there was a bond that was formed. And so she stayed longer than she should have because of that bond that she would always go back to. And I think a lot of people stay longer than they should because whether it's something like that's happened, whether people they fight and then they get back together and it's that high of that fight, right? And they keep going back because they love the feel of that high, right, from the fighting. Whether it's miscarriage, you have you create that trauma bond from miscarriage, or, things like that. Trauma bonds are, people stay longer than they should because of trauma bonds. Also, empathy. You understand them more than you protect yourself. So you see their past. You see their wounds, you see their struggles, and you see everything that they've been through as a child, or everything that they've been through in the time that you've known them. And so you think, you know what, they've been through so much, right? They don't mean to act this way. It's not who they are. It's just what they've been through. And you start extending them so much grace because of what they've been through. You start neglecting yourself.
We've spoken about that in a previous episode too, how you can be too nurturing, like you can overextend yourself too much to the point where you're actually damaging yourself. And so I'm happy that you kind of brought that back around. Another reason why people may stay in these dynamics longer than they should, sis, could be because of confusion and self-doubt. So they're second guessing their thoughts and feelings, and they're questioning their personal judgment. These are for the people who have no real stable identity, and so they're always kind of reaching out to people to figure out how they should act, how they should move. And so when I find someone who is always giving me an answer, now I'm here. Now I'm stuck here because they're feeding me exactly what I feel like I'm lacking. And so the internal dialogue will be like we've been saying, maybe I am overreacting. I'm self-doubting myself because I'm trying to save this relationship, or maybe it is me. Maybe I'm tripping. Maybe I'm doing too much. All those thoughts in a situation where you know, I'm not talking about a made up situation that you know you made that up. I'm talking about a situation where you know for a fact, no, this is really how this made me feel. Those situations, those confusion and self-doubt really plays out in those kind of dynamics, and people end up staying longer than they should. But why this matters is because when clarity is lost, the decision making becomes harder. So all that also speaks to discernment. When your discernment is off, you are also unable to make decisions by yourself and clear decisions. And so confusion keeps people stuck together because of control. No, I'm sorry. Confusion keeps people stuck together more than control could actually keep them stuck together. So like we were saying a few minutes ago, it's the way that this whole thing is crafted, right? Like if I can keep you in a state of confusion, I can also keep you in my control because you're dependent on me for clarity.
That's good.
There we go.
That's good. Also hope for change. So holding on to the potential, not the reality, right? So this one keeps people stuck for such a long time because you don't stay for who they are, you stay for who they could be. So you see, like, you know, I just see their potential. I see who they could be in the future. You know, I know that if I stick with them and they do better, I just know that they're going to be great people in the future. But you have to understand that, you know, we can't stay for potential. We have to see who they are right now and what they're showing me right now.
And act on that,
Exactly.
And then last but not least, sis, unless you have another one, spiritual misinterpretation. So people are spiritualizing what they're going through. So they're saying things like, maybe God wants me to endure this. Maybe God placed me in here for a season. I just need to love them better. Or I don't want to give up on them. And this kind of closely links to what you were just talking about, but it's about me being able to see better in them that is not actually visible right now currently. And so that is a little dangerous because now we're talking about patience versus tolerance, love versus lack of boundaries, and grace versus staying in harm.
And then the last one, fear of starting over or be alone. And I think that this one is hitting a lot of us millennials really hard because, and I can speak, you know, for myself. I'm 34 years old and still very single. And I think that a lot of people, a lot of millennials are, especially millennial women, are in their 30s and in their 40s. And there's even some women in their 50s that are still single. And so, you know, they get with somebody and they're like, you know what, I'm just going to stay with this person. Or maybe they're not married, but maybe they have a lifelong partner that they've been with. And they're like, you know what, I've been with this same man. I've been living with him for however long, and I'm just going to stay with him, even though he might be a narcissist. But you know what, I'd rather just be with him and split the bills than to be alone.
There we go.
And I just don't want to start over. And so a lot of people stay for that reason.
Just settling,
All right, let's wrap this up. Last question. How can believers discern these patterns early and respond in a healthy, biblical, and emotionally wise way?
So I think one way is to discern early through patterns, not just moments. So we're looking at repeated behaviors, not isolated incidents. And this is just to your first point. We're not looking for the traits. We're looking for the actual personality disorder. Also, pay attention to internal signals. So internal, healthy internal checks. So if you're having a loss of peace, if you're always confused, if you're feeling pressure, if you're feeling pressure instead of freedom,
Sorry, I got excited.
or difficulty being honest.
That's a good one.
or difficulty being honest to the person or even to yourself, these are also good ways to identify that something is not right between the dynamic.
Yeah, that's a good one, sis. I love that one. Do you feel pressured or feel guilty? Like, pay attention to how you feel early on, because the further along you get, the harder it's going to be able for you to feel these things, because you're going to be so numb to it. So early on, like you're saying, pay attention to the interactions. Pay attention to how you feel. Also, don't ignore early discomfort. Discernment often starts as discomfort before it becomes clarity. Watch how they respond to boundaries, because we know that if it's a healthy relationship, right, if you come with a boundary, then they're going to be like, you know what, I respect that boundary, right? Or if they're like, you know what, let's discuss it a little bit more, but there's open communication, that's a healthy relationship, right? But if you come to them with a boundary and they automatically just shut it down, then we know that's a red flag.
Angry.
Because why are you doing this? Right?
In a relationship where
this boundary is important to me, so why are you just shutting me down? Because we already talked about and when we were talking about the question with the boundaries, they shut boundaries down. So that's a red flag.
Good.
What else? Pay attention to how conflict is handled. Do they take accountability? You remember we were talking about accountability. Why can't I say that word? Accountability before. They don't take any type of accountability. Also, do they deflect? Do they place blame? You remember we were talking about that when we were talking about dating. Also in friendships.
Shifting the blame. Putting it back on you.
Twisting situations.
That's right.
And so the last part of the question is asking about responding in a healthy, biblical, and emotionally wise way. Keep your identity anchored in God. And that's how that's what we've been saying the entire episode. The most important thing is that you are keeping a relationship with God. You're keeping that intimacy with God, because that is what's going to bring you those convictions. That's what's going to make sure that you keep your trust in God. Also invite wise counsel early, not just when it's bad. I think that people invite that wise counsel, especially in marriages, right? They invite that wise counsel when things are broken, when things are about to be torn apart, right, when it gets terrible, but invite wise counsel from the beginning. I would say invite wise counsel, and we're talking about in relationships, right? Invite wise counsel before you. I would say always have wise counsel, even before you get into a relationship with somebody, because you should always have somebody that you trust, so that when you get into a relationship, when you start dating, you can always go to that person like, you know, hey, you know, I'm going through this, I'm dealing with this, or hey, you know, this person, you know, I was talking to this person and they said this or they did this. What do you think? Now, I'm not saying that every time something happens, you should go to somebody, because I don't agree with that either, but you should use discernment. Right? If going back to when we said, notice how you feel after interactions, right? If you felt confused or you felt drained or you felt pressured or guilty, I think those are the times where you should go to your wise counsel and say, hey, you know, I've prayed about this and I'm feeling a little uneasy. What do you think? In those situations, not after every single interaction.
And I think that that's important too, sis, to keep kind of a rhythm, right? Because what is more alarming is when a person is coming to you, like you said, at the end, when everything is already broken. If you're able to have that one person or even two people, you know, depending on who your community is, that you're able to keep abreast, right? Well, I'm not going to you about every single thing, but I'm able to say in April, remember in January when so you're able to also help me identify, and you as my wise counsel also have a full picture. Remember, this is somebody who you trust. So this is somebody who is also keeping track with you. They're not trying to tear you down, but they're able to keep you accountable. They're able to track with you the patterns and kind of say, oh yeah, like this has happened before, or yeah, no, I see why you think that, because I remember the last time we spoke about. And so just keeping that kind of rhythm with that person, not only going to them when things are bad or when things are through the roof, but keeping a good open communication with your wise counsel.
And then the last thing, move at a pace where you can think clearly. We talked a lot about manipulation, right?
And pressure.
Exactly. But move at a pace where you can think clearly. Don't let anybody pressure you into doing something that you're not ready for. If somebody's trying to pressure you into moving in with them, or pressure you into doing something, anything really, that you're not ready for, or make decisions that you're not ready for, that's definitely a red flag. So move at a pace that you feel comfortable with. Make sure that you're consistently prayerful about everything. Amen. And if they're trying to push you to do something that you're not ready for, then that's definitely a red flag, and you should really pray about how you can how you should move forward with that person and in that situation. Well, we made it through. Barely. This is actually a very long episode, so we hope that y'all enjoyed it. This is mental health awareness month. I'm trying to talk fast because this is an extremely long episode, but this is mental health awareness month, and we have an entire month full of really exciting episodes surrounding mental health, and this is the first of many. So we hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we hope that you enjoy the whole month. We have some really special things coming up. It is the beginning of the month, and so we just wanted to let you know. I don't know if we should let them know on this episode because it's so long. People probably logged off by now, but we said that we would, so we might as well let them know that season 2 is going to be ending, coming up here real soon. We have a couple of episodes left. We have the whole month of May, and then in June we are going to take a break for the summer. We're not going to leave y'all hanging like last time because y'all were in shambles. But we're going to take a break for the summer, and then we'll be back after the summer if the Lord says the same. We have some special episodes during the summer, so we'll tell y'all more about that as we pray about it and as the Lord releases. But we just wanted to let y'all know so that y'all have time to get prepared, because we won't have any structured episodes during the summer, but like we said, we'll release some really cool episodes so that y'all can get to know us on the way as we relax for the summer.
I'm excited about the new format, like the new things that we've been speaking about and praying about.
All right, we up out of here because this is like 5 hours long. We love y'all. Most importantly,
get in that Bible.